Before we get started, subscribe to my channel. I know you probably haven't seen Candace Owens on this channel for a few weeks or maybe a month or so, but you know she just had her baby boy on January the 13th, 2021. I think that's the correct date. But I was curious about what Candace Owens thought about this vaccine, this COVID-19 vaccine. So here is what she said about the vaccine. And you know Candace, she's going to speak her mind. Oh yeah, and she was 9 months pregnant when she made this video right here. So here she goes. So I think it was made probably in December or maybe the end of December. But check it out.
Did you guys miss me? I feel like I haven't been on really in the last 2 weeks, and the truth is I'm 9 months pregnant, and I've just been working on finally getting a nursery together and realizing that I'm going to be a mom in a couple of weeks. But I had noticed that a lot of people were tagging me in a comment that I made on Instagram a few days ago when I was talking about vaccines, and a lot of people wanted me to clarify my position on vaccines overall, and to, I guess, elaborate on the incident that I hit on in that post about me having been injured by a vaccine, which is why it transformed my thinking about vaccines over time. So I will start by telling you guys the story. First and foremost, my stance on vaccine is that I am not explicitly pro-vaccine, and I am not explicitly anti-vaccine. What I am pro is people using their brain and assessing the risks and evaluating whether or not it is a good idea to take a vaccine. I think any blanket statements when I come across people that are like, I'm against all medicine's bad, I think that's incredibly foolish. When I come against, when I come across people that say I'm pro-vaccine and every single vaccine that the government creates I will stick into my arm, I think, those are opposite sides of the same coin, and it's ignorant. And I used to be a super ignorant pro-vaxxer. What I mean by that is that I personally just thought that every time a doctor tells you to get a vaccine, you should get it, and that you should not ask any questions. And that's because obviously I'm vaccinated. When I was a child, I was vaccinated. The vaccine schedule has changed dramatically since I was a child. It is much more aggressive. But I just thought, hey, if the doctor says to do it, you just do it. All of that changed. I was about 20 years old when, and people will remember this if you are, I'm an 89 baby, but you'll remember this if you are a millennial. Suddenly they started pushing in commercials really aggressively the Gardasil vaccine, HPV vaccine. The irony is that I had never even heard of HPV. We had never even learned about that as an STD or an STI in school. And very suddenly they were saying that every single woman, this is the interesting part, women needed to go get the Gardasil vaccine, which was a 3-part series of shots that was supposed to guard against cervical cancer. So specifically for women, and it was supposed to be a guard against cervical cancer. I went to my gynecologist and he's like, yes, you should get this. So we're going to start vaccinating you. The first time I got the first part of the series, as soon as he gave me a shot, I passed out. And he thought that it was because I hadn't eaten breakfast, and I hit the ground, and he said, maybe you didn't eat breakfast, and I actually had not eaten breakfast, so, just thought it was a weird thing. I was a bit shaken about it, but just thought this was a weird circumstance where I just didn't have energy, and I got a shot, and I passed out. Well, lo and behold, I then went to get the second part of the series, and made sure I had a small breakfast that morning. I think my appointment was in the early afternoon, got on the table, and the nurse came in, and as soon as they put the shot in my arm, I not only passed out again, but when I woke up, I instantly started vomiting and seizuring all over my nurse, and then she called in the 2 doctors. Both of them were male. Really awkward time because I had already undressed for my examination, so I was also naked because the little towel thing that I had over me had fallen off because I hit the ground so hard. It was just a really terrifying, awful experience. I'm not a person who has ever had seizures. I'm not a person who passes out, by the way. That would have been the 3rd time in my life that I had passed out, 2 times being in that office. When I came to, both of the doctors, there were 2 doctors in that office, were in there, and he had basically said that you are having a reaction to this vaccine for whatever reason, and we're going to recommend that you don't get it anymore. When I remember I was crying hysterically, and when I left, I was really shaken up, and I went to my mom's office, which was very nearby. and had just sort of said what had happened. And it was really nerve-wracking for me because then as time went on, I started hearing stories from other females who had had really bad experiences with this vaccine, girls that were my age. I had some friends who had no reaction to the vaccine, and some friends that did have, some friends that said that they became a type 1 diabetic after getting this vaccine. I am not at all saying that that is what happens, and I cannot confirm or deny that information. I am just telling you what girlfriends that I have been that I was friends with in the past said had happened to them. And I started digging into this vaccine and thinking to myself, why did I just allow this doctor to inject me without doing any research? Really, because I have faith in medicine, I have faith in doctors, and I would think that doctors would never recommend something that would be harmful to me. But as I started researching the vaccine, I was first off really surprised to learn just how low instances of cervical cancer are in America altogether, right? So cervical cancer, if you look up American Cancer Society, there are currently 166 million women that live in the USA today. Of those 166 million women, there are an approximate 13,000 new cases of cervical cancer a year. And only 4,000 cervical cancer deaths per year. So it's incredibly interesting, in my opinion, bizarre, that we would have a medical institution that would want every single woman to get vaccinated against a type of cancer that only 14,000 or 13,000 women new cases acquire annually. I think that those numbers just don't justify everyone getting a vaccine, and certainly not pushing it upon women in the way that they did. It was every day. Everybody remembers these commercials. You have to get this vaccine, it's safe for women. The most bizarre part about that Gardasil vaccine is that years later, they transformed it and started saying, well, men need to get it too. So this went from initially being something that was promoted as for women and for cervical cancer to being something that suddenly was promoted for men too. And I started seeing the commercials years later of little boys saying, my mother could have saved me from having cancer if she had just given me the HPV vaccine or had just given me the vaccine. And that is when I was really kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional, but I don't know how we went from just women to now everybody needs to get it. And then we started having politicians trying to force this upon 5-year-olds. And I think it was in the state of New York. Do not take that as a fact. Just definitely look it up. But the women, the mothers fought against this. They were trying to mandate in one of these states that 5-year-olds get vaccinated against HPV, which is super bizarre because HPV, first and foremost, is a sexually transmitted disease. And which can lead, by the way, just to connect the dots for those of you that don't know why I'm saying HPV and cervical cancer, they said HPV can lead to cervical cancer if it goes untreated. The majority of people who get HPV, it goes away on its own without any treatment. So that's probably why we had never learned about this STD when I was in high school. We were learning in health class about STDs. We never even learned about it. And in a certain state, I'm almost convinced it was New York, but again, fact check that independently. They suddenly wanted to mandate this on 5-year-olds, and it terrifies me. Knowing how I reacted to it, knowing how scared I was, knowing that I passed out twice, that I had a seizure, that I threw up, the idea of a 5-year-old being mandated to take that, it's scary stuff. So it forever altered my opinion on vaccines, meaning that I would never, ever, ever be a person that would just get a vaccine because a doctor said so, meaning that I always perform my own independent research. I am not afraid to say that. I mean, we have been such a vicious and disgusting society against moms who speak out about their children getting injured by vaccines. We treat them like they're all crazy conspiracy theorists, which is interesting because first off, we're in the era of believe women, but we don't like to believe moms when they talk about what's happening with their children, when they say their children were fine until they got a certain vaccination. And what's interesting about these women that do say that is that they are spread across every different background, every different socioeconomic class. I mean, there are rich, wealthy women and poor women coming together, women of all races, to say something happened to my child. It's entirely plausible that two children don't have the same reaction. I know, again, I have a girlfriend who had no reaction to any of the HPV vaccine. She had no reaction to Gardasil. I did have a reaction. How could someone tell me that my experience wasn't real? That how can someone continually tell parents that are saying that something has happened to their child after they got a vaccination, that their experience is not real? And how do we say that at the same time that we protect the vaccine makers from lawsuits, that they cannot be sued if somebody is injured? And we see this tremendous gaslighting of moms. And so now that I have a platform, I want to use it to support those moms and to say that I believe you. I believe you because I've had a vaccine. I was vaccine injured, and I had a reaction when I got a vaccine. And I don't think that your story necessarily means that every person in the entire world should ever get vaccines and that it's bad. But I certainly acknowledge that vaccines are not a one-size-fits-all, and I think that it is important to assess the risks and the benefits and to conduct your own independent research. We saw the media completely dog people like Jenny McCarthy, Kristen Cavallari, people that came out and said that they don't vaccinate their children. And we've all just decided that this is the highest crime against humanity, and we don't even have the discussion. If vaccines work and vaccines are amazing, why aren't we even allowed to have the discussion? Why is it being censored? I think now is especially the time where we can start talking about this stuff because we are more awake as a society to the evils of the pharmaceutical industry in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, and them essentially trying to implement concepts of forced vaccinations and going to have to be mandatory, and understanding just the numbers behind how much money pharmaceutical industries make. We know where there is money, there is an incentive. And I think I've never seen this many people, both people that say they are pro-vax and anti-vax, coming together to discuss their lack of comfort with rushing a vaccine, with saying that you want everybody to get it. We should always pause and ask questions. And I, as a mom to be, am definitely, obviously not a shy person, so I don't really care what you think about me. In me saying that I don't believe in all vaccines, I believe you should research risks and benefits. If you think that makes me whatever name you want to call me, at the end of the day, I'm still Candace Owens, and what people think about me means very little. I'm going to make the best decisions for me, best decisions for my future child. That's it. Love to open up the discussion in the comments. And Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates are evil. The end.
Did she really say this? This is what a lot of people been wanting to say. But Candace, she gonna speak her mind. But again, subscribe to my channel and have a great day.